What's up everybody, welcome back. So the last part of the LyraFX mini-series, we have most of the WeaponFX set up, but we need to take a look at the MetaSounds. So we're going to take a look how to set them up and fixing some of the errors that appeared after migrating them. So that's today's video. If you like what I do and want to support the channel, you can become a member, or you can have a look at my Ko-fi page. Becoming a member will give you a membership badge and access to some premium channels in the Discord as well. And also some premium downloads in the Discord. So if you do not want to become a member, you're still welcome to join the Discord, of course, and talk about some game dev stuff, or show a project you made, or ask questions about a tutorial. So let's dive into the video. First of all, we're going to take a look at a few small things from the previous video. So if we go to our weapons folder and open the weapon impacts blueprint, I missed one pin in here. So if we go to the branch for the glass impacts, we need to make sure that we connect it up over here. So from the setter back to the Niagara set position array, I missed this connection, so make sure you connect this up. And then I also created a boolean in here for the damage numbers, and I forgot to set this up. So we're going to take a look at that as well. So let's compile and move this one out of the way for now. So if we open up the damage number Niagara system, so first of all, in here we want to select the system state, and we have a loop duration that's really long. So we're going to set this to 5 seconds, and that should be plenty. And then we can set up a boolean to define a critical hit. And if we set it to a critical hit, it will turn the color from blue to red, or you can define your own colors in here if you like as well. So if you want to set it up, you want to create a new user exposed variable. So click the plus sign over here and simply search for bool, and then you want to select the common bool, and you can give it a name, so something like crit maybe. So if you use the user crit, then this could drive the boolean over here. So if you click the little drop down arrow, you can search for user, and you can use the user crit boolean that we just created. And now that will be assigned to this color over here. So if we save this down and we hook up this node and make sure that we define the correct name. So we have user.crit. And then we can set it to true, and that will turn the damage numbers into a red damage number. So for example, if you have a headshot or something like that, you could set it up to work that way. So I need to open up the correct map, and then we can have a quick look at if this is working. So let's see. So now the damage numbers are red. So that's the stuff I wanted to take a look at from the previous video. Now let's take a look at fixing up the MetaSounds and setting everything up. So let's have a look at the MetaSounds that we migrated in the first episode. So if we go to the migrated SFX folder, I'm going to add a new filter for the MetaSounds, and they are MetaSound source files. So if you cannot enable this filter, you probably not have the plugin enabled. So make sure you have the MetaSounds plugin enabled if you want to use the sounds. So we're going to open up one of these, and you will immediately see there's a whole lot wrong with them. And fixing this up is not too hard, but it's a little bit tedious. So we can simply look for the same nodes with the same names and replace them. We need to keep in mind that some of the pins are on different positions, so you can't simply move them over. You need to keep a little bit of attention where they should go. And if you want to move over pins between nodes that have an error, that doesn't work as well. So for example, if I would look for a gated wave player over here, and then I would need to connect this to onPlay, but that doesn't work because this node over here has an error. So keep in mind, if you reconnect pins, that you keep trace of where they should go and where they come from. So let's fix up this one together, and then you should be able to do the rest yourself. So I'm going to look for the low ammo tone as well. So I have both of the nodes in here, and I need to connect onPlay to the trigger. So let's do that first. And then we can grab on finished and simply move over the other pins, so the out left and the out right. And let's do the other side, so move over the trigger, the amplitude, the array, and the pitch. So we can get rid of this one and then do the low ammo tone. So move over the out result, and this should go inside the gain. And then we need to make sure that we copy over the values so everything matches up again. So this should be 0.3, and then get rid of this, and that's the first one fixed. So let's move up a little bit, and we have the wave player crossfader. So let's look for that. And again, we're simply going to move things over. So the distance is in the middle over here. Then move over the arrays. The trigger is also in the center, and then the pitch is at the bottom again. Let's move over the output. So only using L until fixed, but they have the output hooked up to R. So I'm not really sure, but I'm just going to move it over to R. And if it doesn't work, we can always go back here. So this should go to unfinished. And then again, we need to copy over some values. So this is fade to end, that's over here, 7000. Fade 1 begin, that's 1500. And then we have 3500 for the end. And then fade 2 begin, so that's over here. And all of these should be 1 and the last one 0. So that should be good to go. There we go. And there's more at the bottom over here. So we have another wave player crossfader. So again, just move over everything and make sure it's in the correct spot. The pitch, and there we have the outputs. So out left, out right, and unfinished. And then let's get the correct values in here. So fade to end, fade 1 begin, fade 1 end, and then fade 2 begin, that's this one. So the close amp is 0.3, 0.3, 1, and then 0. So that's good to go as well. And then we need another gated wave player over here. So we can simply move these over. Out left and out right. There we go. So those are done. Now over here we have a homemade shelf, and if you look for this node you can't find it, and we need to replace it with the stereo high shelf. So if you look for this node, that should work. And then because all of these have errors, I'm just going to look for all of them together. So we have the random EQ, and then we have the stereo gain. So we have the out left, and out right. The gain comes from the multiplier over here. Then we have out right and out left again. And over here the outputs and the inputs. And we can move over the rest. So this is next, the seed and the distance. And over here the inputs and the high gain, and 1100 for the value is good, so we can get rid of this. So we got rid of all of the errors in here, so we can have a look if this is working, but I have bad news for you, it probably isn't working. So as you can see, I still can't hear anything, it's not playing correctly because it keeps playing. So we still have something wrong. So let's have a look at what we need to do next. So if we go back into our migrated SFX folder and we disable the MetaSound source filter, then we need to look for ms underscore. And over here we have all of the MetaSound functions, and there's probably 1 or 2 in here that have errors as well. So let's just open them up and see if we need to fix anything in here. So all of these look good. That's good. So you're simply looking for red lines or nodes with a red comment around them. Okay. Oh, here we go. So it's the last one. For me, it's the wave player crossfader. These errors, they don't really seem consistent, so it could be another file for you. Just check them all and make sure everything is working. So again, let's make sure we simply replace all of the nodes in here. So let's get an equal power crossfade. And let's get a gated wave player over here. So the out 0 goes into the amplitude. So let's hook that up first. And that's good to go. Now we have the out in over here. And grab the input. And this one is good. So let's move over the left side. We have the trigger, the in array and the pitch. And the other side doesn't have any errors, so we should be good. So just move them over, play, unfinished, left and right. There we go. So let's do the bottom one. So we need another equal power crossfade. And another gated wave player. So the out 1 goes into the amplitude this time. So let's grab out 1 in the amplitude. And that also goes into the minus over here. And then we got an input. And this one is good to go. And move over the gated wave player pins. And the other side should be good. So just move them over. Unfinished. And on play. And now we have one gated wave player left. So we can simply move these over as well. Trigger, amplitude, no. So amplitude, in array, and the pitch. And then we have on play, unfinished, and our left and right outputs. There we go. So if we are lucky, we should now have a working fire sound for the pistol. So let's make sure that we save everything first. And let's go back to our fire sound. And let's hit play. And there we go. So that's working. So now we can simply go into the other MetaSounds, and in here you need to do the same thing. So over here we have wave player crossfaders, gated wave players, low ammo tone. So it's the same thing as we did in the pistol file. And on the right side again you have the homemade shelf, and you need to replace that one with the stereo high shelf, and then also replace these nodes, and that should fix the other fire sounds. So also the rifle and the shotgun sound, all of them have a few errors, so make sure you fix up all of them, and then you should be good to go. And once you have that done, we'll get back to moving on. Press play on the rifle fire sounds, and they didn't work, and that's because there is a trigger in here that actually triggers the sounds, and they aren't handled with the play button over here. And they also have a queue set up with the actual shot interval, so that's the fire delay that your weapon has. So you will notice if you will select this fire node and press simulate, the sound will play, and if you actually smash the button, it will queue up the sounds. So we need to take this into account if we want to play this sound later. And we also want to make sure that we set up the pistol and the shotgun in the same way with a fire trigger, so that way we do not have to worry about which sound we are playing. So let's do that one first. We're going to open the pistol fire, and on here we have the on play. We're going to go to the inputs on the top left and add a new one, and then we can click on it so we can rename it, and I'm going to call it fire. And then down here we need to change it into a trigger. So right now it's set to bool, and we're going to change it to a trigger. And then we can simply right click over here and look for fire, get the fire input, and then we're going to move over the pins. And now we have a trigger good to go. So now if we simulate it over here, we can play the sound using the trigger. So let's save it and close this one down and do the same thing for the shotgun. So we have multiple that we need to place over here. So let's go to the inputs and let's add a new one. Again, I'm going to call this fire and change it into a trigger. And then we're going to add them over here. So look for the input fire. And then we have 3 more down here. So also replace those. And now we have a trigger set up here as well. So that's working. So we have the actual sound files done. Now let's have a look at changing the variable in the data table, because right now that's set to a sound cue. So first of all, let's have a look in our base character to see if we actually have the value hooked up somewhere. So I'm going to look for the fire sound and look for the references. And there is one, but that's only in the set weapon cosmetics. So that's fine. I'm going to disconnect it for now. And compile and save it. So let's close this one down and let's go to our data table. We need to change it in the structure actually. So let's open up the weapon info structure. And over here we have the fire sound and we're going to change it into a MetaSound source. At least we should be able to. Yeah, obviously we need to do that over here. Good morning. So over here. MetaSound source, and then we can save this one and make sure that we change the settings in the data table as well. So we assign some sounds in here. Oh, come on, why are you doing this to me? There we go. So in the migrated SFX MetaSounds, so we have the pistol over here. Let's plug that one in. The AR, let's use the first rifle fire, and then the shotgun one, and then SMG. I'm going to use the pistol sound, and I have an SMG as well, and I'm going to use the other rifle sound, and that should be good. So with that done, we can finally set up the actual blueprint to play the sounds. So let's create the blueprint first, and that's going to be very similar to the ones we used for the FX. So right click, create a new blueprint, and that's an actor. So I'm going to call this BP weapon sounds, and open this one up. So first of all, make sure that it's replicated. So on the right side, replicates, and enable the flag over here. And then we're going to dive into the event graph, and we can get rid of all of this stuff and create our own custom event. So that's weapon fired, and I'm gonna set it up as a multicast event. And then we need to add some inputs. So first of all, we need a weapon mesh component. So weapon mesh component, and that's the skeletal mesh component. Skeletal mesh component over here. And then we also need the fire time of the weapon, and that's a float. And we need the sound, so that's the fire sound, and that's a MetaSound source. Nope. There we go. So first of all, we're going to promote these two variables. So right click, promote to variable, and do the same thing for the other ones. So we have those stored and good to go. And then I'm going to add a sequence over here. So drag off, sequence. And for the first thing, we're going to check if we have a valid audio component. So we need to spawn one. That's a bit easier to set it up. So right click, spawn sound attached. And for the fire sound, we can plug in the fire sound variable over here, and we're going to attach it to our weapon mesh component, also in the variables. So I'm going to lower the volume a little bit, but that's up to you if you want to do that. You don't really need to do anything in here, I think. No, that should be good to go. So with this done, we can promote this to a variable as well. So that's going to be my audio weapon fire component or something like that. So audio weapon fire component. And now that we have the variable, we can check if it's valid. So we're going to drag it in here and get an isValid node and hook this one up to the sequence. And then we also want to check if it's active. So the same thing that we did with the FX ones. So drag off here again and is active. And then we're going to grab a branch right here, hook that one up to the isValid. This goes into the condition. If it's not valid, we're going to create one. And if it's not active, we're going to create one as well. So now we need to set a few things on the audio component. So like I mentioned, we need to set the weapon fire time because it will queue up the sounds. And if our fire time from our weapon doesn't match the one in the Lyra game, you're going to have issues where the sounds doesn't match. So we need to set it, and we can do it by dragging off the audio component and setting a float parameter. So set float parameter. And you need to get the one for the controller interface. So that's the middle one over here. And then the name over here is going to be shot interval. So that actually refers to the MetaSound as I mentioned. So if we go back into the MetaSound source over here for the rifle fire, we have an input called shot interval. So this is what we're setting. And then we want to plug in our weapon fire time, and that's good to go. And then we need to simply trigger the sound. So we're gonna grab the audio component over here, and then we're gonna execute a trigger parameter. And we can hook that up over here and to the isValid node as well, or to the branch. And then our trigger name is fire, because that's the input trigger that we created. And this will actually play the sound. So that's done and good to go. And now all we need to do is grab the branch over here to check if we have still active components, and otherwise we're going to delete this blueprint. So we're going to grab a retriggerable delay over here and hook that up to the sequence. So I'm going to set this delay to 3 seconds, and then I'm going to grab a branch in here. So I'm going to check if my audio component is valid. So drag off the audio component, is valid, grab the green one this time and hook it up to the branch. So if this is valid, we're going to wait another 3 seconds, and otherwise we're going to delete the blueprint so we can destroy ourselves. So that should be the entire blueprint. So compile and save, and now all we have to do is set it up in the character. So let's open our base character, and in here we have our server weapon fired function. So let me see over here, and in here we're spawning all the FX blueprints, and we're simply going to spawn the weapon fire sound as well. So we're going to add a pin to the sequence, and let's scroll down a bit. So we can pretty much copy this spawn actor and the make transform and paste it over here. So this time we're going to spawn our weapon sounds blueprint, so BP weapon sounds, and that doesn't have an owning player, so we can get rid of this. Let's refresh the node to make sure everything is working. So we can promote this to a variable now. So promote to variable BP weapon sounds. And then we can perform our isValid check. So let's drag it in and let's grab an isValid node. So if we are not valid, we're going to spawn one, and let's hook this one up to the sequence so we don't forget. There we go. And then once we spawned it, we need to attach it to our weapon mesh. So let's drag off here and look for attach actor to component. Attach actor to component, that should be in here. There we go. So we want to attach our BP weapon sounds to our weapon mesh. So drag that onto the parent. and then we can leave the rest as it is. So keep a relative, and that's 0, so that's good. And then we need to call our weapon fired sound event on the weapon blueprint. So drag it in and simply look for weapon fired. I did call that weapon fired, I think. I probably misspelled that. Oh, really? Let me have a quick look over here. Okay, here we go. Weapon fired. So as usual. There we go. So we can hook this up to the isValid node and to our other branch over here, and then all we need to do is plug in the correct variables. So we're going to grab our weapon mesh and plug it in the weapon component. We have the fire time stored in our variables as well, so we can simply plug that in and grab the fire sound as well. So that should be good. So we didn't actually change the fire sound over here, so it's still a sound cue. So make sure that we change our fire sound variable into a MetaSound source as well. And then we can drag it in over here and plug it in and go back to our server set replicated. No, the other one, server set weapon cosmetics. And in here we need to reconnect our fire sound as well. So it's over here, fire sound. Drop it in here. Make sure we connect up the execution again and grab it from the data table. And now we should have everything hooked up. So let's make sure that we save everything in case it decides to crash on us. Oh, there we go. Obviously it crashed. Nice. So I'm gonna restart it. I'll be back in a sec. Okay, I'm back. Everything's saved luckily. So let's have a look if this is working. So simply hop into a solo game. That should be good. And there we have a pistol sound. So that's good to go. So I do not have other weapons set up because I reset my profile. So let me have a quick look over here. I need to go into a solo game, into multiplayer, so I can actually assign some weapons. So let's pick the rifle and grab the shotgun for the other one. And now that should work. So that's good to go. It doesn't actually change our fire sounds, so that's something we need to look into. Okay, it doesn't change the sound because I forgot to set the blueprint to undefined if we switch a weapon. So we need to go into our switch weapon event. And over here we need to make sure that we set our blueprint weapon sounds back to nothing, so it will spawn a new one with the correct sound variables. So let's drag it in over here and connect it back up. And now that should make our weapon switching work as well. So let's have a quick look. Pistol. And that's definitely another sound, so that's the rifle. And there we have our shotgun. So those seem to be working. So with all of that out of the way, I hope you enjoyed the videos, and if you did, please consider leaving a like. I'll be back soon for more. Thanks for watching guys, talk to you later.